Hi everyone, my name is Ruth Floren. I have completed my master's degree in forensic psychology from National Forensic Sciences University, India. Now, I'm going to talk about distinguishing therapeutic assessments from forensic assessments. Traditional therapeutic or clinical assessments differ from forensic assessments in a number of important ways. Some of the ways in which they differ include: first, goals and objectives; second, relationship of the parties; third, identity of the client; fourth, consequences; and fifth, examinee's perspective. These differences focus on core overlapping areas between therapeutic and forensic assessments. In addition to these fundamental differences, forensic assessments include two additional requirements: first, identification of the legal question, and second, an assessment of whether the forensic psychologist can assist the court. The first way in which therapeutic assessment differs from forensic assessment is in the goals and objectives of each approach. The objective of the therapeutic assessment is to help the examinee by diagnosing and then treating the person for the relevant emotional and psychological problems. The objective of a forensic assessment, by comparison, is to assist the court. The forensic psychologist may diagnose an individual with a mental illness, but instead of treating the person, the forensic psychologist may simply inform the court of the manner in which this mental illness impacts the defendant's decision-making or ability to function in a legal context. This difference does not mean the forensic psychologist is without compassion or that the examinee should not or will not be helped. Rather, it means that the primary objective in the assessment itself is not to provide information to inform treatment, but rather some legal purpose. The relationship between the evaluator, and the examinee is different in a forensic assessment. In a therapeutic assessment, the role of the therapeutic psychologist is to exhibit concern and offer support. An important part of the therapeutic assessment is to build rapport in order to help the examinee through his emotional difficulties. In a forensic assessment, the psychologist adopts more an investigative role in which he or she is focused on an objective examination of the information pertinent to this examinee. Supporting an individual through the legal process or the relevant psychological difficulties is not typically a consideration in the forensic assessment. It can even be challenged to determine the client in a forensic assessment, a task that is not normally present in a therapeutic assessment. In a therapeutic assessment, the client is very clearly the person who has sought your services. It is the person whom you are evaluating, the person you are interviewing, the person responding to the psychological test. However, the issue can be more complicated in a forensic assessment. The client or clients may not necessarily be the person sitting across from you in the evaluation, because the person who hired you and to whom you owe a duty may differ from the person you are evaluating. In a forensic assessment, the client is more likely to be the court or the attorney who hired you. This difference in the identity of the client is often reflected in the level of confidentiality associated with forensic assessment and the obligation the forensic psychologist has in going further to make the limitation clear, while making sure the examinee is giving his or her informed consent for the assessment. Therapeutic and forensic assessment also differ in the consequences of the evaluation. The consequences of the therapeutic assessment usually result in an intervention or treatment approach being designed and implemented for the examinee. The consequences of a forensic assessment, however, could include a financial reward, a loss of freedom, or even a loss of life. Although the consequences of receiving poor or ineffective treatment should not be minimized, the consequences of a forensic assessment can be more severe. The accuracy of the information you obtain is generally more questionable in a forensic assessment than in a therapeutic assessment. During a therapeutic assessment, the examinee's perspective is heavily relied upon because it is voluntary and there is a shared course of action between the evaluator and the examinee. During a forensic assessment, the examinee may not present himself voluntarily. The evaluator questions or waits for verification of his statements, and the examinee has something to gain from the outcome of the assessment beyond a reduction in psychological suffering because of a mental illness. As a result, accuracy of the information is much more likely to be at question in a forensic assessment than a therapeutic assessment, and the importance of the examinee's perspective varies. We will continue the discussion and next video, then I'm going to talk about method and procedures interview. I promise to declare the truth. Bye bye.